webinar, the third in a four-part series on how to use SignageLive. My name is Lisa Yates and I'm a sales engineer for SignageLive. On chat today we have Robbie who will be able to answer any questions you may have during this webinar. We estimate the webinar will take no longer than 30 minutes, and today we'll be looking at layouts and covering the following: how to create a layout within SignageLive, using things like schedule zones, editing RSS feeds, adding static zones including picture-in-picture, and looking at some of the widgets that are available within SignageLive, including QR codes. So as we were last week, I've logged into my internet browser. I've gone to my SignageLive network and we're on the Remote Media Sales Network today. So I've gone into content and we're going to go into layouts. So we're now in the Layout Manager. What we can do here is we can browse any layouts that we've created previously within SignageLive. So if we work from the left-hand side here, so at the top here I can search. So if I put SignageLive in and hit return, that's going to do a search on any of the layouts that I've created with SignageLive in the title. What we can also do on the search bar is we can do an advanced search. So if I hit advanced search, and if we hit the advanced button, what I can do is I can search for items that have SignageLive in the title, and we can set a start date or a last use date, and we can search on those terms as well. What we can also do is if I just click onto this first layout here, so this sample 1 SignageLive, if I go down to the right hand side at the bottom, I can add tags. So when I'm searching for my layouts, they're easier to find. So I can add tags in here. So we'll put corp in there for corporate. So if we stick with the left-hand side here, so we've got the smart folders. So if I hit recently added, that will show anything that's been recently added. And then below here we have folders that we can create ourselves. So all we need to do is just hit add folder, and then we name the folder. So maybe in an education environment where you've got it done departmentally, so you've got maybe the geography department that have a different layout to the science department, what you can do is you can create them folders so they can store their layouts. So all you do is you name the folder and then hit create folder, and it will just appear on the left hand side here. So for instance, if I go into demo layouts, all we have now is a series of layouts that we've actually just dropped into that folder, and I'll show you how you can do that. So if we go back to all I'm going to do here is pick a thumbnail and then just drag it into one of the folders that we've created. So we'll put this one in education. So it's just copied that into there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a quick poll, and then we will go into how you create a layout from scratch. Okay, so to create a layout from scratch, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this new button on the top left-hand side, and if we hit that, we're now being asked what the screen resolution is. So what I'm doing here is I can pick from the drop-down menu the resolutions that we've got there, or if you're working on a custom resolution, so for instance a video wall, all you need to do then is just put the width and the height in pixels and then hit OK. It's also then going to ask you if the screen's in landscape or portrait, so you've got the option to change that there as well. And it's asking us, do we want to create a blank layout or use a template? We're going to create a blank one because if I hit use a template, all it's going to do is basically take me back to that browser which we were in at first when we were actually looking at all of the pre-created templates. So what I'm going to do now is hit create layout. One thing to bear in mind is that the layouts are only supported on 3 versions of our software. That's the display edition, the screensaver, and the desktop alerts. Layouts are actually not supported on Virtual Player, as Virtual Player supports only full screen content, pictures and movies. So just to bear that in mind. So looking at this screen now, the area in the middle that we've got is basically our canvas where we're going to layer up our content zones and actually create our layout. So if we start on the top left hand side, and what we'll do is we'll run through the tabs. So the first tab we've got is the Home tab. So below that what we've got is we've got New, we've got Open, and then we've got Save. Within Save we've also got Save as System Layout. Once you've created your layout, if you save your layout as a system layout, it does mean that that layout is then non-editable. So when someone goes into SignageLife, they can't actually change that layout because you've created it and the zones that you've set will stay as they are. The next tab along is Clear. And then we've also got zones. So we've got Duplicate and we've got Delete. Now these won't appear as tabs that you as buttons that you can actually use until we've got some schedulable zones or content zones actually on our layout, so we'll come back to those. So if we move now to the Layout Design tab, so first of all we've got global fonts. Now SignageLife will pick up any fonts from the laptop or PC that it's actually connected to, so the one that you're working from. So if you are using a corporate font, then you just need to make sure that it's installed on the player at the other end. But what I can do here is I can select the font, I can change the size, I can also change the colour. So moving on now, the next section along is backgrounds. So what we can do here is we can create a really quick coloured background. So all we do is we hit the little paint pot and then we just go and pick our colours. So we'll do 2 colours. And then what we can do here is we can do some blending. So you've got the vertical, so we'll just pick one and hit OK. So straight away we've just got a coloured background where we can maybe start putting our content zones on. What you can also do with the next tab along is if you've created something outside of SignageLife, for instance in Photoshop, that you wanted to use as your layout background, what you could do now to bring that in is if you hit Add New, and then all you need to do is just search the files on your laptop or PC that you're connected to, hit Open, and you can upload it that way. What we can also do is if you have something that you've created that's already sitting on your SignageLife network, if I hit View More, I can then go and search for some background images. So if I put SignageLife in the search bar, and we'll use this first thumbnail, and I'll hit OK. So as you can see now, we have a background that we've dropped in, and we're going to now put some content zones on that. But if we go back up to our layout design, so we've got our backgrounds. Next to that, we've got our resolution. So we've got the ability to change the resolution again once we're actually creating our layout, and then we can also change the orientation as well, whether it be landscape or portrait. So if we move back up to the top tabs now, the next one along is background elements. Now the background elements are shapes that we can just use really for layering. So if this JPEG that we've just got from our SignageLife network, if it didn't actually have these sort of sections on it where we've got sort of the slightly bolder sections, what we could actually do is we could create those just by dragging and dropping some shapes out. So what I can do here is I can change the colour of these shapes. I can also blend the shapes. We can do some alpha blending there as well. We can change the corners, so we could perhaps round them in. So that's how you'd add a background element. And to get rid of that, all I'm doing is literally hitting delete on my keypad, and that's actually getting rid of that background element for me. So if we move along to the next tab, and that's our content zones, we're going to start from the left-hand side, and we're going to start with the schedulable zones. Now your schedulable content will be the placeholders for the playlist that you're actually going to put into them. So the playlist that you will have created within SignageLife. So again, all I'm doing is clicking on the item, dragging it out. And what we can do here is you can size it just by dragging the corners out. But what you can also do is you can set the X and Y axes up, and you can also put the width and height in as well. So if I just put So we can do that manually as well, and then just put that into place. What we can also do here, because this is a schedulable zone, is we can actually set a default asset. So when you don't have any playlists that are due to play in that zone, what you can actually do is you can set something there as default. So that could be, for instance, a movie file, it could be a JPEG, so we'll just pop a movie file in there. So if we go back to our content zones, the next one along we've got is RSS. So this would have been an RSS feed that you would have uploaded as an asset to SignageLive. So this could be something from, say, the BBC or Sky, or it could be an RSS that you created within SignageLive as a custom RSS. So all we're literally doing, again, is just holding down and then dragging out the RSS. And then just dragging it to size. Once you're happy with the positioning, if we go back up to the top, again we can do things like change the text. So we can go in and change the font. I can change the size. And I can also change the colour. If we move along to the backgrounds, again we can do the blending. So I can blend that right out, and I'm going to change that text colour back to black. And then what we can also do is we can actually put that RSS feed in a widget if we wish to as well. Moving along to the animation, what we can do here is we can change the animation direction of the RSS feed. So we can have it traveling from left to right, from right to left, from top to bottom, from bottom to top, and then also fading in and fading out. We can also add separator images to our RSS feeds. So these are just a series of JPEGs that we've uploaded to SignageLive as separators. So what I'll do is I'll put one in, and then I'll show you how you'd upload a new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the SignageLive dots in keeping with our theme. And as you can see, in between every sample text, what we've got is we have a JPEG with the SignageLive dots. Now, the sample text will represent one story within an RSS. So if it was, say, the BBC News, it would be one headline. And then if we go back up to the separator images, and if we just hit Add New, again, the same principle. I'd find the file, hit Open, and then that would then appear. What we can also do with our RSS feeds is we can actually change the speed, and we can also set pauses. So we go back to the content zones now. And let's look at the static zones. So the first static zone we have is the text zone. So again, I'm just clicking on it and dragging the zone out. And again, what I can do from here is I can change the font. So I can change the text style, I can change the size of it, and then I can also do things like change the color. I can change the background, so I could bring in another color. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the blending and then just blend it out. So if I just double click into this area, we can then just change the text. Going back up to the top, we could also put it in a widget. And what we could also do is we could select a text asset. So if you've uploaded a text document to SignageLife, what we can do here now is we can actually just select that. So you could just go in and select your text document, or again, add new, and it would work exactly the same way. Going in, searching for the file, hitting open, and then just adding it that way. So we go back to our content zones now, and we'll move along to the next static zone, which is image. So again, just clicking on it, dragging it out. You make it to the size that you want, and then you literally go in and you either find the asset or you add a new one. And it's just a case of clicking on it. And then that will actually appear when you come to the deployment phase. So I'm just going to delete that section back out again. So if we go back to the content zones, the next one along, we've got web page. So again, I'm just dragging it out. I'm going to resize it. And then I can either select from a web page that we already have in our drop-down menu, or I can go and add a new one. So say we were putting in the BBC homepage. You just confirm that you have permission, and then you hit OK. And then what you can also set is you can set the refresh intervals, so you can have that running every, say, 10 seconds. The only thing you need to be aware of when it comes to web pages is unless the web page is a dynamic web page, it won't actually scale the web page to fit the area that you've designated to it. What it will do is it will actually show from the top left-hand side down. So if we go back to our content zones, and I'm just going to delete that web page out so we've got some space. So again, just hitting the delete key once it's highlighted. The next static zone along is our Samsung picture-in-picture. So if you're working with a Samsung embedded solution, you can actually create picture-in-picture within SignageLive within a layout. So again, all I'm doing is I'm holding down on the picture-in-picture and then dragging it out. I'm resizing it. And then we go back up to our inputs. And all I need to do now is just select the input. So for instance, if I hit HDMI and we had maybe a skybox attached to the back of it, and we were maybe, I don't know, playing, say, Sky News in a staff room sort of area, then all we need to do is just take that input and it would then start displaying whatever is behind that input. And as you can see from the drop-down list, there's a series of inputs. So there's lots of functionality for the picture-in-picture. And I'm just going to delete that area again. So if we go back to our content zones, the next section along we have widgets. So our first widget is a QR code. So again, I'm just holding down on the QR code, bringing it out, and then resizing it. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with QR codes. QR codes are quick response codes, and if you have a smartphone, you can download a QR code reader. And with that reader, it gives you the ability to scan these QR codes. And the QR codes within SignageLive that you can create can do a number of things. So I can get it to create text. So when the user scans the QR code, a text will appear on their phone. I can get it to navigate to a website, so we'll create one now. So we've just created one that will navigate you to the SignageLife website. So if any of you have smartphones and you get your QR code reader up, if you were to scan that now, that would take you directly to our SignageLife website. What we can also get it to do is we can get it to send an email. An example of where we've used this is earlier on this year we did screen media, and we had a QR code that was, want to become a reseller, scan this QR code. And the person with a smartphone would scan the QR code, and it would basically send an email from their smartphone to us, just with the subject of, I'd like to become a reseller. And then straight away we had their email details so we could get back in contact with them to establish a relationship. We can also get it to make a telephone call. We can get it to send an SMS, send an MMS, and add to contact. So for instance, add to contact, all we need to do is just fill out the details and then just hit generate. And again, it will just generate a QR code exactly the same way that it did when we hit navigate to website. So that's QR codes. So the next two widgets we have are clocks. So we've got an analog clock and we've got a flip clock. And again, it's just as simple as holding down on the flip clock and then just bringing it out, resizing it, and then setting it in the area that we want it. What we can also do from here is we can actually change the color of the background as well. If we go back to the content zones and we go back to the widgets, there are two widgets that will be coming to SignageLife shortly that actually don't appear. One of them will be for Twitter, and the other one will be for Foursquare. The Twitter one is actually available now on request, but they will be built in as widgets. So all you'll do is exactly the same as everything else. Just click on it, drag it onto the screen, set the zoned area for it. And that's basically going to be it. So if we now move on to the last tab, so the last tab is View. So within this tab we have our zoom. I can zoom and I can move around the layout that I've created. We have the 100%, and then we also have best fit. If we look at the rest of the screen as well, we've got the view area repeated here on the bottom right hand side. So we've got the best fit, we've got the 100%, and then we've got the zoom. We've also got the layer navigator. Now if I click on that, what I can do is I can actually look at the content zones that I've got running on the screen, and I can lock them down. So say for instance I want to lock my QR code down. Now if I go to try and move the QR code with my mouse, I can't move it because it's locked down to that area. And you can do the same with everything else, so the widget there. And then what we can also do is if we untick the box, it actually gets rid of that sort of static text zone. But if we tick it again, it appears on the screen. So that's it for today, and creating layouts within SignageLive. Thank you for your time. Join us next week when we'll be looking at deployment.